Hello and welcome to Books and Beyond. I'm Jimmy Bennet. I'm your host. Books and Beyond is the show where we hope to help people personify their aspirations. Sorry, I've been gone for a little while. It's been kind of a hiatus, but hopefully I'm back in the saddle again. We'll be doing more shows. Got a few cooking shows coming your way, I hope. We'll just see how things play out. I'm going to just skip most of the pleasantries this morning, except for one public service announcement. Get out there and vote, okay? I went and voted early, which was kind of a cool thing.
I did too.
Did you vote early?
It
Yeah,
went very well. It was
I thought that was
did.
that was a nice idea instead of having to stand in line with 300 people,
Yep.
on Tuesday morning. It wasn't super quick, but
About 50 people when I
yeah,
voted.
it depends. I guess it depends on what time you go and all that. But I'm really encouraged. I mean, this is going to be a big one, and it's going to really set the course for our country for a while, I believe. So
I agree with
Yeah.
that. Everyone get out
So-
and do your part.
Yep. And
Everyone
one other
vote.
thing I want to talk about is real quick is I had a phone call the other day from an older woman who asked me if it was possible how to get grants to publish her book. and
Grants
stuff.
to publish a book.
I said, well, I'm sorry, I really don't have any clue how to do that. I said, I have a show, and if you'd like to come on the show, I promote your book, But my point being is people out there, if you're writing a book, I would encourage you to do things like join a book group like CAPA, the Southeastern Connecticut Authors and Publishers Association, and listen to your fellow writers and people that have been published and people that self-publish, and get their ideas for them before you start thinking about spending a lot of money with a publishing company. There's a lot of things going on out there that I've had some pretty scary offers in my life. Oh, we'll publish your book for $12,000 or
Right.
that kind of thing. And she said, I'm on a fixed income and stuff, and be careful about, you have Amazon, KDP, many other avenues to explore first.
I would agree with that. My quick public service announcements, I'm actually lecturing at the Waterford Library on that very topic
Oh, you are?
on Thursday, November 14th at 6:30.
Okay.
So if you're available and in town, I will be talking about writing, about ideas, about the process of writing, options to publish or what to avoid, resources that are available, things like that. So-
Oh, that's great. Well, I'll be there for that one. So.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, and I guess since we've already halfway into the conversation, I'm going to introduce Larry Zaccaro, my guest. Larry's a great friend. He's a fellow author and, a very creative person. He's designed a word game. And our last project together, we were trying to put together a script for A Castle Christmas, which, hey, if you're out there,
That's right.
give us a shot.
The
I-
screenplay is
that-
adapted
yeah.
and ready to go.
I was kind of laughing. I was looking on one of the streaming services yesterday, and they had another. Must have been 25. It wasn't even Hallmark, but just 25 more Christmas movies.
Lifetime is a
Yeah,
big one.
Lifetime. And, they just, and I'm telling you, we got a good one. All right? I'm telling you, don't, So.
It's a period, historic, romantic story.
Right. Yep. And just happened to be set at Christmas time.
That's
So,
right.
Or encourage you all to, pitch in there for us. All right. So, anyways, today, Larry, we'd like to talk about Convergent.
Convergent was actually my first novel that I wrote. I wrote a version of it more than 20 years ago that was published, and I've edited it and adapted it since then quite a bit, and the current form is called Convergent. The story behind that was really a long time coming. Ideas that I developed that were original ideas and insights into the way life is and the way people are. More than 40 years ago, almost 45 years ago, the ideas for this story started. At a very critical time in my life, I was graduating from college with a graduate degree, a master's degree in biology. And as I was studying for that, some of these very far-reaching insights and ideas started coming into my head. Now, it was critical because just a couple of years earlier, my father had passed away far too young, and the graphic reality of his protracted death from cancer really, really affected me deeply about our family, of course, and about me personally, but mainly for the loss of him, the loss of his life. That had stayed with me for a long time at that time, and still really to this day. That actually set a foundation for the way I thought about life as I was studying all these intricate details of biology and all the details, some of those ideas that came to me at the time. Now, I didn't know what to do with them. I'll get into some of the details in a minute. Excuse me. But the depth of the ideas and the far-reaching nature of them are really something I felt I needed to share, and I have shared continuously. That's at the core idea of the story that is now currently in the form of Convergent, my novel. So we can talk more about that, if that's all right. So the ideas really started around the intricacies and the details of how life works. I was studying for my comprehensive master's degree final exam at the time. So I was trying to learn and refamiliarize myself with how life works. Now, most people, they can understand it at the level of biology 101. All right, we all had that in high school or even sooner, and maybe in college. But the core part of it is the information that is the source of what we are, not with any belief, not with any figurative interpretations. We are exactly made in the image of our genes within us. DNA, we all know what DNA is, we all know what it does. But we think about our conception. When we were first conceived, and really any life form is conceived, whether it's a seed or an animal or even a bacterium, that the DNA, the information in our genes, is going to create us. All the information is in those two cells that come together to form us, one from our mother, one from our father. And that really stuck with me as something we kind of take for granted, and we think about it in a passive scientific way. But that is the actual source of what we are. Nothing coming from the outside that's given that information, or other than the energy that the DNA has figured out to use to make life forms. That really struck me as the core of what we are. Now, the ideas really, they're very grounded. That's very realistic, and it's not, you don't need to believe anything. It's happening without us, without our input. When we were conceived,
right,
you know, it happens without us. Yes, it's in our mother, but her mental input isn't necessary. It's sort of like digestion, right? It happens, it's all a self-contained growth process within the cells themselves. That makes us what we are. And all that information really starts in the two cells, one from our father and one from our mother. Now, one of the important things that I was having a hard time coming to grips with at that time, especially following our father's passing away, was mortality. And I think most people still don't have a grip on mortality. There's a bit of denial going on. Life is mortal. Life is finite. We have our window of time that we are alive, and all animals and plants are alive. And that was actually a bit terrifying, that we're here for a little while and we're going to pass away. But then going back to the idea of what DNA is and the source of us, and our conception, it hit me as a mathematical problem and bear with me on this, if you take all the sperm that your father had donated and all the eggs that your mother had, any other combination would be someone else.
Right.
One of your siblings who wasn't conceived. And I calculated mathematically that our chance of being alive in the first place is 1 in 1 quadrillion. That's 15 zeros. 1 in 1 quadrillion. Your father has hundreds of millions of sperm every time, and your mother has a finite number of eggs. Any other combination wouldn't be you, wouldn't be me. And so once I realized that as a mathematical fact, not a belief, there isn't some magical thing that comes down and gets into your cells, that only you could have been that combination, that said, wow, you know, that's hundreds of millions of times less likely than winning Powerball. That's how lucky we all are to be here in the first place.
Wow, you don't think about it that way.
No, you don't. So I'm not normal, but mathematically, that is undeniable. That's an equation, a calculation. So when you
I feel a little more special.
You are, and incredibly lucky. And so when you go ahead with life with that foundation, then man, we're so lucky to be here. So how can we make the most of it? So that, then you get into other components of what we can do with our time on Earth to make life better for everyone. Now, the story Convergent is 2 alternating stories. One takes place 2,000 years ago, one takes place now. The main character now is a science teacher who's teaching all about life to his students, but one of the key things he says at a few key scenes in the story is what I just explained about how lucky we are, that the source of what we are is DNA. And he goes so far, which is my idea, of course, my insight into it. DNA is actually God the Father. It is what we are made in the image of. There's no external input other than energy sources and other things that DNA, God, has figured out how to use to make us, to make all life. So he's teaching his students that. There's another half of the story in Convergent, literally alternating chapters, is a familiar biblical character, Jesus, living 2,000 years ago. He's trying to teach a familiar message that we know about, but no one understands the science he's trying to teach. He's trying to teach the same idea about what God is, and of course he's talking about love and how we need to love each other. But there's no science like that 2,000 years ago, so there's no words to explain what DNA is. And so he's running into nothing but grief and problems trying to teach his message, following the same lines of the story that's in the Bible, with twists on it that explain, with the knowledge of the science that I explained. Both main characters, the science teacher today and Jesus 2,000 years ago, are teaching the same idea, and you realize there's similarities between them. And then there's a bad guy in the current story who takes exception to what the main character is trying to teach. He goes after him and his family. Bad things happen. And you realize at the end, with some science fiction, that both stories are all the same story. It's the same guy trying to teach the same idea 2,000 years ago, but more importantly today, with our scientific knowledge as a foundation for what God is and for what love is and how we need to act and behave globally. So one of the take-home messages really is God has nothing to do with any religion. You don't need any beliefs. If God is real, he's factual. He's a real thing, and it's the same for every single person and every single living thing. So it's a scientific idea, a scientific foundation. So what do we do with that? If we know God is DNA within us, so now what do? There's no ritual, there's no prayer, we don't need to write about it. We just need to accept it and understand it and act. So one of the key things, and what I think is why we are the way we are, why people have evolved. People would say 2,000 years ago, all the great spiritual leaders of mankind have said it's because of love. We need to love in order to behave and act to make the most of life on earth. The key thing is all living things, all plants, all animals that have ever lived, survive and behave with instinct as their guiding force. We all know that, we can agree with that. A plant or an animal or anything, a fungus, they have this ingrained behavior and properties that the DNA is the source of right from the beginning. That's how they go about their life trying to survive. Now, people are the only life form that has a choice on how they're going to behave. We can be as good as we want or as bad as we want. That's the difference. And where love comes into that is love is a choice. Any act, any behavior that helps as many people as possible, that improves the quality of life of as many people or things as possible. So love is a choice. And so how do you do that? All our behaviors should have that foundation as a way to behave. And that's easy, helping your family, helping your friends, doing things that help everybody or as many people as possible. But the whole key is this can be a global foundation. That can be applied to politics. And as we all know, recently we don't see that very much. Politics are all about helping me or helping my constituents or my party. Love to help as many people as possible. It can also be true in economics, in the environment. Economics, a business that charges a fair price for a service or a good that improves the quality of life of people, that's an act of love, as long as you're not monopolizing or ripping people off.
Right.
So it's that foundation to give whatever we can to help as many people as possible without sacrificing ourselves is really the foundation of why we're different, what we need to do, how we need to behave each as individual people, but also on a global scale. So that's the take-home message in the core of the stories of Convergent. And I wrote it the way I did. It's wrapped up in a fictional story, but the ideas that I've just explained are very real, very fact and scientifically based, and it's kind of undeniable. We kind of already know that we need to be doing that on a global scale and as individuals. A lot of us forget it or don't do it on a big scale.
Well, I'll touch on one point you just made about instinct.
Yeah.
That most life forms
live on
an instinct. And it's kind of funny you said that, because it was something I used to say to my kids, and I didn't make a lot of great choices. I made a lot of bad choices. And but it was a growing, learning process.
We all learn as we go.
Like you said, if I knew then what I know now, would I have done things differently? Well, hell yeah.
Yes.
But I used to tell my kids this all the time. I used to say, if you're out with your friends and they're drinking beer and smoking weed, and they want to jump in the car and go to McDonald's, and you say to yourself, this is not a good idea.
Yeah.
It's not a good idea.
Yep.
I said, listen to yourself. Every time that I've gotten in trouble, I knew it wasn't a good idea. You know what I mean? And times when I've hurt people or done things that I should not have done, I knew
You knew it ahead
that
of time.
I knew ahead of time that I shouldn't have done it.
So the instinct's still there
Right.
talking to you, but you made the choice on what to
But
do.
that's the whole thing. I
Yep.
mean, and that's where, that's where I understand. And as far as the diversion in religions and all the other ideologies and stuff across the world, well, I mean, I firmly believe, because now that the world's smarter, more connected, you understand more. I
Right.
mean, like, people sit there and go, well, we ought to nuke everybody in ISIS. Well, you know what? You didn't grow up that poor Arab kid living in the desert, struggling for water and food every day. You know what I mean?
That's all they knew. That's
Yeah,
all they were
that's what
taught.
I'm saying.
right?
Somebody came along and says, look, I'm going to give you a better life. Join us. You know what I
Right.
mean? Yes. Do we think they're misguided? Yes. But do they think we're the devil? Yes. So, I mean, it's sort of a thing. One of the most fascinating concepts that I found, and believe it or not, I found this in one of those Star Trek novel books, one of those offshoot Star Trek novels. It was called the IDIC theory, which means infinite combinations and infinite diversity. And basically what it says is that if you stagnate, it's like a pride of lions, right? If they just breed among themselves, eventually the animals come out lame, weak,
Right.
poor,
Inbreeding.
deformed. You know what I mean? That's
Yep.
why other lions come in and kill the other cubs and start again and add, thing. And I really kind of believe that that's the way the world is going to work at one point or another. We're just going to converge into one. There's going to be one color.
The more wider,
Yeah.
the wider the pool from
Right,
all
the
the
wider
genes
pool,
that
the-
combine,
The stronger, the smarter, the better.
the better genes get expressed
Right.
and survive
And I
better.
think that
Right.
eventually certain genes will win out. We'll all be basically the same color. You know what I mean? In the same, sort of the same physical aspects. Like they're saying now that there's no true blondes. I mean, honestly, they said Scandinavia, those true Aryan blondes are just about gone.
Right.
I mean, they've been bred out of the gene pool, which is not bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's where I think you get a lot of flack, though.
Get a lot of flack. So I know I have gotten and will continue to get flack for saying that religion and spirituality have nothing to do with God. If God is real, the factual foundation of what we are and the information that made us in the first place, it's the same for everybody.
Right.
Everybody on earth that has ever lived, it's the same. It doesn't matter what was written 2,000 years ago, what you pray for, what you believe in. It's a fact. And everyone knows that what we need to do is be as good as we can to help everyone,
Right.
as many people as possible. You may not have been taught that, but when you understand it, when you learn it and understand it, you realize that is a foundation for how we need to behave. So I've gotten flack, and the most common argument I hear from people when I express the ideas that I just did is, well, nobody knows what God is. And I say, well, I just explained to you what God is. Tell me a fact. Tell me any fact that says it's not true. Don't tell me what you believe that was written 500 years ago or 2,000 years ago. Tell me facts. And I've yet to hear any.
Well, that's one thing I've always kind of wondered. It's really struck me since I was a young man, growing up in the Catholic religion, going through the rituals, and listening to the dogma, my whole life, was that if God is this supreme being that sits above everything else,
Right.
and created this whole entire universe and everything in it, where the hell do we think that we could even understand
The whole
what
universe.
he's thinking? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
instead of looking out there
right.
for the whole universe, and I didn't realize it at the time, but what I was doing was looking as far inside of me, as far inside of us as I could look, to the nucleus of every cell. Now remember, we have trillions of cells in our body, and every single one has a copy of that original combination from your mom and your dad. All this information to build everything we are, our systems, our skeleton, our amazing eyes that see as they do, our brain that has the capacity for creativity, which is another advantage. Without living by instinct, we have this incredible brain that's wide open to create art, to create music, all the incredible engineering that we've made and continue to make. All that is because we have this flexibility, this freedom of thought that no other life form has ever had. God gave us that ability, gave us the ability to love from his love. He gave us this incredible gift to improve our quality of life. It's kind of undeniable. We have the most amazing, our species is the most amazing of any that has ever lived, and yet we sort of piss it away because we are so wrapped up in our own little territory, our own little worlds. We, say they're different, or we got to get more, whatever it is. We have this incredible gift, and that is evidenced by all the things, just the art and the music and the engineering, the cities, everything that we've done, the medical advancements, antibiotics, even vaccines, which are an amazing invention. All that is because God gave us the ability to think, gave us the ability to have all this creativity.
Gave each of us that combination.
Right.
That brought us with us. Well, I tell you, Larry, that it's kind of mind blowing. It's one of those things you need to think about a little more.
You do.
And I think it'll be interesting to see. Well, we won't see it, but as time progresses and science gets, more and more, see how things, maybe people will really start to realize. Because I do believe you're right. If everybody sort of realized that, hey, God is in me.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And
our time alive is our time with God.
Yeah.
All right. And that's the opposite of what everyone thinks. You go to meet your maker or whatever happens.
Yeah.
We're with God right now.
Right.
And this is the time that's special and amazing.
Yeah. And make the best of it.
Make the best of it. And make the best of it for those around you, whatever influence you can.
Well, thank you, Larry. That was great. We went fast today, man. We'll have to.
Is that time already?
We'll have to get back to it again. But
Waterford Library at Waterford Library on November 14th.
Yeah, definitely show up for that one. So, all right. Well, thank you so much. This has been a great show today. We'll be back, and till next time, take care. Thank you, Larry.